Whispers float in empty halls. Footsteps echo down the walls. Shadows break where secrets lie. Every echo holds a hidden sign. Blow the trace along the crime, a hush that haunts the night, a fear that lives in light. Unravel lines of twisted lies. In the dark, the story waits unseen.
And here we go.
Hi, I'm Rochelle, the Psychic Sleuth. Spirit shows me patterns across past, present, and future. What comes through can be symbolic, metaphoric, or not always literal, though sometimes it is. Messages often carry multiple meanings that weave together through energetic tracking, prophetic sequencing, and blueprint mapping. I know I talk fast sometimes, it's just how spirit flows through me. You can always replay or slow down if you need to. I triple check what I receive with astrology and cards, but this isn't about being 100% right. It's about truth, responsibility, and integrity. I'm the one sitting with spirit on these cases, so this is a space for truth seeking, not debate. Please respect the work. If you can't honor spirit, this may not be the place for you. And before we start, I want to make something clear. My process has evolved for a reason. I don't use sitters anymore. I don't do live channeling on heavy cases, and I won't be performing on command. That's not safe, it's not accurate, and it pulls the work off track. I work the way spirit directs me through mediumship, pattern recognition, astrology validation, cards when needed, and prophetic sequencing. Every layer strengthens the message and protects the integrity of the case. Please don't tell me how to do my job. This isn't about entertainment. It's about truth, responsibility, and helping families. If my style isn't for you, that's okay. But this is how I work, and this is how the work stays accurate. If my work resonates, the best way to help is through community support for Justice's Cadaver Dog Training Fund. It doesn't take huge donations. Even the cost of a coffee adds up when many give. Shop new merch and help Justice on his mission. Links to my shop and donation page are pinned below. Every purchase helps fund the work. Thank you for being here. Now let's get on to today's case. So they got the story wrong. Rebecca's case is stranger than fiction. I'm not here to repeat a narrative. I'm not here to chase rumors. I'm here to give Rebecca her story. Whether the full truth ever comes out publicly or not, this is the timeline that aligns with the astrology, the symbolism, and the impressions I received. This is the version that finally made sense after untangling every contradiction, every feeling, every vision, and every pattern that kept coming forward. I've checked this over and over again. I validated through the chart. I validated through sequencing. And this is the story that speaks. Rebecca deserves clarity. She deserves someone to lay the pieces out honestly, without fear, without pressure, and without bending to whatever version people want to believe, and without people freaking lying about what happened. So I'm presenting this for her. Take it or leave it. But this is the story that fits. Once I put the pieces together, the cards, the impressions, the astrology, everything clicked. And the truth, it's stranger than fiction. And it's not what's being said online or by the police. The chart doesn't match with the story being told, and that isn't a thing. Astrology doesn't lie, patterns don't lie, and energetic sequences don't lie. And my channel doesn't lie. It just needed a full pattern to appear before it made total sense. I fully did not understand how deep my pattern recognition, prophetic sequencing, or psychic sequencing really went until this case. Rebecca's case is the first time I watched every symbolic piece, every impression, every fragment I've gotten over days finally lock into a perfect pattern. This is the moment I understood my gift in a way that I never had before, and it wasn't random. It wasn't scattered, it was sequencing. It was prophetic patterning, unraveling in real time, and once I saw the pattern, everything made sense. Prophetic sequencing, when your gift gives you the pieces before the pattern exists. Pattern recognition, the moment your logical and intuitive mind finally assembles those pieces into a coherent storyline. And psychic sequencing, the layered download style, where I get fragments, then symbols, then emotional signatures, then movement impressions, then rational dynamics, then the click movement, and it forms the one whole truth. I've always worked this way, but this case is when I finally recognized what it is. This is why my readings shift or update. It's not inconsistency, it's sequencing completing itself. It's why for deeper cases, I need multiple videos and multiple layers. And the second I recognized this mechanism, my gift evolved. This case finally showed me the architecture of my gift, the way intuitive fragments turn into completed truth. Once I saw the pattern, I understood myself in a whole new level. When my guides push, it's for a reason. When spirit pushes, it's for a reason. If you ever see multiple videos of me breaking down a case, that's not me being uncertain. That's the story falling into place. That's the threads finally untangling. Spirit doesn't give me the entire movie in one scene. I get pieces, flashes, symbols, emotions, and when the final piece clicks, the whole pattern reveals itself. That's how this gift works. That's how the prophetic sequence works. It brings the truth forward layer by layer until it finally locks in. And when it does lock in, it's undeniable. I'm not including every detail of the process because it's not relevant. What matters is the outcome. This case was incredibly stressful, and I had moments where I questioned myself simply because the public story wasn't matching what I was getting psychically. I didn't want to run wild or jump to conclusions, so I sat with it. I cross-checked everything and I made sure what I was receiving was actually grounded. And once I stepped back and I let the pattern form, everything clicked. The impressions weren't wrong, they were just out of order. And that's when I realized why spirit kept pushing me, why Rebecca's energy kept coming back, why I couldn't drop this case. There was something deeper here that needed to be understood. And I almost quit, not because my impressions were wrong, but because my impressions and visions matched the astrology perfectly, yet the astrology did not match the story being told publicly. And that completely threw me off. I couldn't make sense of why my intuitive hits lined up with the chart, but the chart didn't line up with the narrative everyone else was repeating and the law enforcement was repeating. It took a lot of untangling, a lot of hours, a lot of checking and rechecking, honestly, about 500 times. And every single time I got the same answer. I was stuck in this mental cloud thinking, well, the story says one thing, so maybe I'm wrong. But when you get repeated impressions, you're not wrong. You just have to figure out, you just haven't figured out how it fits yet. And this is why I love forensic astrology. It helps me clarify why I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and it shows me exactly where the story and the truth don't match. And in this case, they didn't match at all. This is what people don't get about real psychic work. When spirit locks onto you, when a soul pulls on you, when a pattern keeps reopening, when the case won't sit quietly, it means there's unfinished business, there's an unspoken truth, there's a knot that has to be untied, there's a message that needs to surface, and there's something that you're meant to decode. Rebecca didn't let me go because her story wasn't fully understood. I wasn't stuck. I was being pulled. That's the difference. I wasn't wrong at any point. Every random piece was fragment of the final pattern. That's prophetic sequencing, that's pattern recognition, and that's the Aquarius Mercury RX system coming online. Now, basically, I'm going to back everything up with astrology right now. I'm going to go through it and tell you how the astrology fits everything. But first, my interpretation of the story and what I feel is most accurately aligned. Just going from all the tools, all the work, and all the astrology. And then I'm going to back it up with that. And I'll try to explain as best I can. That's pretty much broken down. And obviously I can't remember everything, so I will have to read it. But basically, they wanted Rebecca's baby, allegedly, for intimate purposes only. Whether it's the mom, the sister, both of them. The mom specifically is very mentally, she's got a lot of issues. And we know that that's why she stuck herself into the middle of all of this. Not only could she tell and see what was going on, she could tell where they were searching. She could get people to believe her. She could look like she's innocent, right? And meanwhile, while the sister and the husband or fiance are arrested, she can kind of point fingers at them, even though they were all in on it together. We know in the cards that they're all part of the puzzle, they're all part of everything. And when she decided she wanted this baby, because Rebecca was an outsider, she didn't even really raise Rebecca. So she didn't look as Rebecca as like her daughter. I don't think they got along. I think there was a disassociation there with her. I think that she looked at her differently, whether they just clashed or she didn't see her in the same way that she saw the other sister. Plus, she's not very motherly. She's what we call a dark mother narcissist, which is a video that I put out about what that is. So she was also very selfish. She had this obsession in her mind that she wanted this baby, that she wanted a family, that she wanted to share it with, just have the sister and the fiance. She knew that was going on, right? She didn't care about that. She probably even set it up for all we know. And Rebecca again was the outsider. She was something that was disposable. So this was part of the plan because she's older, she can't have her own kid even though she doesn't need to be having kids. This was a plan that was set into place. She researched, which I said in the very first reading. She looked things up. She saw how do you, how do you take a baby? How do you cause somebody to have a baby? How do you deliver early? What medications can be used? All of that kind of stuff. There's all kind of researches going on. She become obsessive. When she hit about 38 weeks, they had to do it then because they couldn't do it when it was 40 weeks or 39 weeks because sometimes people give birth early. So the plan was made, a meeting that was a lie, an abduction, and yes, a holding. Rebecca was held, in my opinion, somewhere in a different location. She was drugged or things were given to her. I don't know what they had on hand. She was not fed properly. It's almost like in a way she was stressed to maybe go into birth early. I feel like she gave birth possibly naturally. Because this is where my house scene that I keep repeating comes into my mind, where I see the pillow coming down on my face. Now, the face is blurred on who's doing that. I can't tell if it's a sister, it's the mom, I don't know. Probably the mom, but it felt like their energies are intertwined, so it's really hard to tell, and I'll go into that with the astrology. So, but there's also the male that is very prominent in the chart as well. So I could hear the baby crying prior to this. The more that I've tapped in, the more that I've received the vision, I could hear the baby crying and I could see someone walking and holding the baby and shushing the baby and just like I could hear it. I could tell. And that didn't come until recently. It was like I was getting bits and pieces like I just explained with the sequencing. So it was like I'd get the suffocation or starting to suffocate. I get them walking around with the baby, all of that. Well, in my cards that I did last night and also in the astrology, it had come up that I kept getting run, escape. So there might have been a time where she tried to run, why she tried to escape, and maybe she got a certain way or got pretty far. And this could have been, I feel like maybe it was when they were trying to unalive her, maybe she escaped, maybe she took off. A lot of things can happen when you're under adrenaline and you're fighting for your life. That's the part that's kind of like I'm not really sure about the complete timeline on that, but it feels like she tried to run and escape. The whole thing in the woods, there is no, and I'll go into this, death signature of being killed in the woods. She was already deceased from strangulation or suffocation before that, in the process of either trying to get away or something around that time frame. Then the stabbing in the woods and the cutting of the stomach was a cover up to cover things up to make them look a certain way. And it was done prior to people starting to search the area. So if you think about it, she wasn't in that area because the mom was going over where they were doing the searches. So a big thing was that she was going to move her back afterwards. I'm not even sure if she was deceased at the time that they were searching. She was held for quite a while until she gave birth, in my opinion, and from what I can see. And the baby, as stated in my cards and as stated in my visions, was dressed as a girl to, everybody's looking for a boy. So that's why I kept seeing it as a girl. I saw it very bright eyed. That was the first thing I saw. I was walking around the house, not even like really, and I'm like trying to tap in, and all of a sudden it pops in. I see this baby bright eyed, kind of looks like the mom, regardless, and they have it dressed in pink and it's sitting in a car seat. Then I felt movement, like I was in a car and I was moving. And there's an energy of a female that's present with that baby. And I saw the visions of, them buying formula, looking around, them stressed out, the baby's crying, them being caretaker of the baby, whether they were paid for that because maybe they stole it from Rebecca at some point or they had the money and they paid for it. The end result was this mom never thought she was going to get caught. They never thought she was going to get caught. And eventually they think one of them's, if they do get caught, they'll get away with it, or they can push it on someone else, or, somebody that's not thinking clearly. Even if the sister gets out, I'll go get the baby and hey. So the plan was maybe they were going to eventually run after she thought the coast was clear. Okay. And that's why I gave the southeast direction for where the baby could possibly be, because there's water involved in the location as well, and there was all these other signifiers that are pointing to that area. So I know it kind of feels and seems like it's crazy, right? Like all of this is crazy. But now I'm going to go into, and I'll try to explain the best way that I can, all of this. So I did a couple horary. So the first I'm going to tell you is about the horary. That's where you ask astrology question and you get an answer. Has to be very specific. So I asked if the baby was alive because I kept seeing it kept coming up in the cards. There's no death indicators in the crime chart. And again, I'm going to go through the crime chart. I'm going to tell you just what I have written here. Okay. So the fifth house, the baby, where the baby would be, was above the horizon. In symbolic astrology, above the horizon equals active, moving, present, not extinguished. Below the horizon is quiet, hidden, removed from action, or completed. The baby's signifier was not in a death placement, it was in a movement visibility placement. This isn't a live signature, not a literal claim, but the arc continues. This is why my intuition interpreted as the baby's storyline is not ending. The mother's signifier was in a weak ending or afflicted position. The ruler was combust or declining. It lacked strength. It was tied to malefic influence. It carried ending energy. It was not in motion. It was not receiving light or protection. This matches the deceased contained smothering ending symbolism in the cards. That's why an earlier threat, that's why I got that. Her arc ends in the chart, but his does not, as in the baby. So meaning the mother's storyline was closing while the baby's was not. Symbolically, energetically, and literally. The baby signifier was in the hands of another planet. This is the part that hit the hardest. Horary says that if the fifth ruler is in another planet's sign, house, or power, that the child is in the hands of another. It means moved, transferred, controlled by another influence, narrative shaped by someone else, not in its originating location, and not with the mother's signifier or significator. Sorry. Intuition interpreted that as a handoff. The card showed handoff, rod showed handoff, vision showed a handoff. That's why all the tools aligned. The baby signifier is with someone else. The moon's translation of light indicated a return arc that wasn't complete. The moon in horary always is a flow of events. So the emotional truth, the timeline motion, the moon was carrying light, translating between significators, but not finishing the last aspect, indicating a delay, suggesting an unfinished arc, ending on a movement aspect, not a finality aspect. That means so the story is still in motion. It's not concluded, it's not settled, and it's not in the final chapter. This is exactly why I said it was supposed to be returned. What the fuck is taking so long? So the feeling is coming from the moon's unfinished work. My intuition locked onto that loop in the chart. The moon shows the return, but the aspect hasn't perfected, so the arc is still open. There are no 8th house markers for the baby. Horary shows death through 8th house connections, malefic rulership, cutting aspects, and deathbound moon positions. The baby signifier did not have those. It had motion, placement, and someone else's influence, above the horizon, separation from the mother's arc, a delayed but present return indicator. The fifth ruler astrology doesn't show the ending energy that the mother's ruler does because it didn't. So the chart split has 2 arcs. The mother's arc ends swiftly and the baby's arc continues symbolically past that point. So the chart showed movement, transfer, delay, unresolved return. Another influence holding the fifth ruler, which is the baby. Arc not closed, energy alive in a symbolic sense, and the moon not finishing the final aspect. This is why my intuition, cards, rods, and visions all lined up. They were all reading the same symbolic pattern, and that's why it felt so strong. It does not change just because someone later alters the story or improvises it. So if the chart showed suffocation, smothering pressure, breath restriction, dominance, panic, messy Saturn Mars involvement, not a woods ambush. So then it remains that the true energetic signature of the event, even if later the perpetrators staged the scene, moved the body, changed locations, created a narrative, or dumped her elsewhere, the chart captures the real crisis, not the presentation of the crisis. So even if the original plan changed, the astrology still shows the actual act, not the stage one. And that matches exactly what I saw. Smothering, pillowing, pressure, someone holding a baby, panic afterwards, chaos, improvision, move to the woods, fake narrative. I saw the real moment. And the thing about that is that is an impression that she kept giving me, and if it repeats, it's important and it doesn't change, and I can tap back into it anytime. That's how I know it's a vision. So I'm picking up the real story, not the fabricated story. So that's why it was so confusing. The chart did not show a woods ambush. A woods ambush would look like Mars angular, malefic in the outdoor house, 9th or 12th house involvement, Sagittarius Gemini emphasis, sudden assault aspects, Mercury rulership in a travel zone, Uranus shocks, directional markers pointing outward, predatory stalking aspects. The chart lacked those completely. Instead, it showed confinement, pressure, suffocation, enclosed space, control, and dominance, and panic. It looked like an outdoor contained act, not a random woods, or sorry, like that. It looked like an indoor contained act, not a random woods murder. That's why my intuition never matched the woods narrative, and why the reading felt so wrong to me. The chart isn't confused. The story doesn't match the chart. If she fled, that is the moment the plan changed, not the method. So this is the key. The method doesn't change because the location changed. The location changed because the plan collapsed. The astrology stayed consistent. Suffocation, pressure, and controlled violence. Those are method signatures. A wood scene is a dump zone, not a method zone. This is why. The chart doesn't match the woods. Visions don't match the woods. Cards don't match the woods. And intuition doesn't match the woods. We even got house in the cards the very first time. The woods feel like a result of chaos, not the origin. The entire reading has shown that from the beginning. So I'm not wrong to question the theory. Psychically, it doesn't align. Astrologically, it doesn't align. Card-wise, it doesn't align. Everything in my system, every tool has been consistent. That didn't happen the way they said. The real energetic action, what actually happened versus the stage scene and what was presented afterwards. My reading has been picking up both threads the entire time. The cards, everything. And that's why I felt like the messages were clashing. They weren't clashing. They're showing two different things. The suffocation, smothering energy, the actual act. This is why my chart and rods and vision kept putting pillow, pressure, smothering, suffocation, indoor feeling, controlled setting, the baby crying in someone's arm, a bed, captivity, the break, the chase. That's the real emotional moment my visions and tools kept returning to. It's consistent, it's clear, and it's stable across all the readings. Nothing in the astrology suggested outdoor random ambush, stabbing in the original acts, or woods as a primary location. I'm not imagining that. The chart literally does not support it. The stabbing scene in the woods, the stage aftermath, the cards picked up thief, burglary, fake death, hoax, meeting, run, escape, dump, movement, delay. My intuition grabbed panic and provision. Make it look like energy, chaos, not clean, not planned. The stabbing cards in my reading do not point to the original act. They point to the scene created afterwards to make the investigators believe a different story. The woods equals a dump site, not a crime scene, and the stabbing equals staging, not original cause. That's why my tools were both showing suffocation, relaxed, why I got strangulation in the cards, and the stabbing stage scene, because both are part of the same storyline, but they happened at different points. I'm not wrong. I'm picking up two separate layers correctly. My cards aren't confused, they're accurate. Here's the pattern. The real attack: suffocation, smothering, pillow scene, panic, running, chase. Stage scene: stabbing, symbols, stabbing, woods, dump. Cover up, delay, fake narrative. I've been reading this perfectly the whole time. I just didn't realize the stabbing cards belong to the cover story, not the actual act. The chart does not match the woods narrative. Why stage and why lie? Staging muddles the timeline. Staging confuses the autopsy. Staging creates a false narrative. Staging moves attention away from the real site. Staging allows them to hide the captivity period. Staging allows them to disguise the baby's timeline. And staging makes the story they told look believable. Smother, panic, escape, chase, end. What was staged afterward? Stabbed, woods, dump, fake story, fake baby death. The woods scene isn't about where, it's about what they needed to erase. In the story, in my reading, showing the perpetrators have two problems. Problem one: the woman gave birth naturally, meaning time passed, meaning she was alive longer, meaning there was captivity. That creates a huge timeline they need to erase. Problem two: the baby is no longer with them, and they need the world to believe the baby died quickly, nothing happened afterward, there was no captivity, no delay, no escape, no chaos, and no handoff. If the public believes that she gave birth normally, then people will ask, when? How long was she alive afterward? Where's the baby? Who took the baby? Why is she alive that long? Why hasn't she been found earlier? All of those questions expose the real timeline. So, and this is why I got timeline cards also in my reading yesterday. So, In my reading narrative, the perpetrators needed to erase everything that happened between the natural birth and the moment she died. A stage cut open scene erases the entire captivity period. Think about what a stage cutting scene accomplishes in the narrative. It makes the baby, and I'm getting the chills, it makes the baby's death look instant. No one looks for a missing infant, especially if they say it died. It makes it look like she died right away. No one investigates long timeline. It makes it look like a crime happened where she was found, not in the real location. It makes the perpetrators look like impulsive monsters, not planners. This kills the captivity narrative. It shifts the public story from where was she for 2 weeks? Oh my god, they cut her open. It's a misdirection bomb. It wipes out the birth scene, the pillow scene, the controlled environment, the people involved, and the time she spent alive afterwards. The break and escape, the chaos, the chase, any evidence in the real location. This is exactly why in my readings, logic, after the stabbing cutting shows up after the suffocation markers. Because it isn't the cause, it's the cover. Now, why the woods? That part finally clicks. The woods aren't chosen for the act. They're chosen for the dump and performance. In my readings narrative, the real violence happened elsewhere, as the chart showed. The woods act as a place to stage a story. A remote area means fewer witnesses. A natural setting hides the fact that she was deceased before arriving. Animals and elements degrade the real evidence. It distances the perpetrators from the real scene, and it creates dramatic, believable horror story. And the biggest part, a woods disembowelment story is loud enough to drown everything else out. People stop asking, where was she alive? Who held her? Why wasn't she in the woods earlier? And why didn't searchers find her? And where's the baby? They get stuck on the gruesome part and the part of my reading that was staged. Now, 2 other points I want to make that I made yesterday. 1, if a baby is stillborn or doesn't survive, why are you going to take it and move it to another location? Why don't you just leave it with the body with the mom? Okay, that's 1. 2, you're researching how to take a baby, for a baby to give birth. Why are you going to go in the dirtiest part? You want the baby for yourself. You don't want anything to happen to the baby. You want to keep the baby. That's the whole point. That's the whole motive. Why are you going to go in the woods where it's dirty and filthy? For infection. Just saying. Okay. The baby being born naturally must be erased in the story. Because if she birthed naturally, she'd live longer. Someone held her. Someone helped or forced the delivery. Someone had the baby afterward. Someone hid her. Someone controlled her. Someone moved the baby. And someone moved the mother. That becomes a much bigger crime arc. Staging the cutting in the woods explains why the baby died instantly in the story. Why she died instantly. Why the baby isn't missing. Why there's no long timeline. And why there's no captivity. It erases all the parts that my reading picked up. And here's the simple version. The suffocation scene is the real act. That matches the signatures in the chart. There isn't any stabbing in the chart for a death signature. The wood scene is the cover act. The cutting is a narrative, not real. The baby's natural birth is erased by the stage scene, and the woods confuse the timeline, evidence, and suspicion. Both scenes show up in my reading because both happened. Now, the 4th house ruler plus the moon condition aspects point to central emotional role, intense pressure, themes of desperation, fear of consequences, protecting or hiding in a transition. That's the mother energy. This energy is the root of the event, not the peripheral. The chart places this archetype at the beginning and the emotional core, the mother. This is why my visions confuse mother versus sister, because both energies sit the chart, but the mother archetype is dominant. Secondary feminine archetype, the sister younger female energy. This archetype appears as a facilitator, a supporting hand, involved through planning or desire, linked to acquisition, possession, helping mom get the baby, wanting the baby, whatever, not wanting Rebecca to have it. This is not the core actor energy. This is a motivational environmental influence. Confusion between mother and sister show up because the chart places them in interlinking roles. Now we have the male aggressor archetype. Mars, its depositor, and its aspects show force, panic, physical overpowering, restraint or suppression, smothering pillow vision, rapid escalation. This energy shows up strongest during the pursuit escape portion of the timeline that I saw. This matches my rod showing escape and my cards showing running, run, escape, and me hearing her running. And seeing her running. Captivity confinement signature. So the 12th house activation plus Saturn plus moon aspects. Being held, not located where she was found. Movement after the death moment. Isolation, hidden environment, basement-like energy. This validates my first card of imprisonment, and it matches like an psychic impression of a basement or somewhere like that. The chart shows captivity. So, birth, transition symbolism. There is a literal birth signature in the chart. Moon plus the fifth house activations, Venus Moon interactions, transition of a child, emotional trauma around childbirth, urgency, fear. This aligns with the sense that she gave birth and something escalated, and then she tried to run, then suppression occurred. My visions of her running after birth match the astrological pattern perfectly. Smothering and restriction signature. So Moon Mars tension plus debilitated Moon. Breath restriction, pressure on the face, smothering symbolism. This exact configuration is what gave the pillow vision. It matches the cards that showed strangulation twice. Because I don't have an asphyxiation card in that deck, I have it in my other one. Also, and this is the kicker, the astrology shows no active pregnancy at the time of death. Now, here's the part nobody's talking about, and this is where the forensic astrology absolutely blows the official narrative apart and validates everything I've just told you. When I looked at the crime chart symbolically, something huge stood out. There's no astrological signature of an active, viable pregnancy inside the body at the time of death. Let me explain what that means in plain English. In astrology, when someone is still pregnant, the chart shows a very specific indicators. The fifth house of children connecting directly to the mother's signifier. The moon in the gestational placement. Venus or Jupiter protecting and sustaining life, and the mother-child bond showing as an internal, intact connection. None of that is present. Instead, the chart shows the opposite. Separation between mother and child, the bond line already broken, crisis after major transition, the child in an external position symbolically, no remaining pregnancy signatures. And that aligns exactly with what I saw psychically. She had already given birth. The baby was alive. She was smothered after the birth. She had tried to get away at some point. The stabbing and mutilation in the woods were done to cover up the evidence, not to retrieve a child. This is why the public narrative doesn't make sense psychologically or astrologically or even psychically. If someone planned to take a baby, researched it, obsessed over it, and supposedly held the mother for weeks, why on earth would they suddenly get reckless and stab the one carrying the baby? That baby is precious cargo. You're putting a lot on the line to have that baby. So why would you butcher the mother in the woods like that, knowing that it could kill the baby? You don't go through all of that effort, all of that planning, all of that research just to destroy the one thing you allegedly wanted. The astrology refuses that narrative. It does not show a child inside her at the time and at the moment she died. It shows a pregnancy already completed and a cover up happening afterward, exactly as my visions aligned. I didn't find out this part until right now. This is actually an add on. And I've already said all of this. So this is just validating everything I've already said. And that is why my visions didn't match what people are saying publicly. My impressions matched the real sequence. Baby born, baby survived, mother becomes a liability, mother smothered, baby move, baby body mutilated to rewrite the story, chaos, panic, and misdirection energy everywhere. And that's why the doctor can say, oh, if she was stabbed like that, the baby wouldn't survive. That's the point. Who's going to do that if you really want the baby? The forensic astrology confirms it. My psychic impression confirms it. And the logical offender behavior confirms it. The only thing that does not fit is the story people keep repeating. Staging alteration of scene. Mercury plus the 8th house ruler plus mutable placements. Changing the scene. Moving the body. Creating misleading physical evidence. Cutting or altering or to misdirect. This matches the confusion about why stab her in the woods and cut her open if she already gave birth. The chart answers this. It was staged after the fact. For misdirection. I don't know why my cat's making that. She always does. Because the birth already happened elsewhere. Psychic sequence was correct. 2 location signature. I was pulled both a house trailer cards. The chart supports a primary indoor confinement and a secondary outdoor placement. This matches captivity, birth, fleeing, and suppression, staging, and relocation. It's exactly why the split I was struggling to reconcile. The astrology reconciles it cleanly. There is no death signature of the baby in the chart. Not in the 8th house, not in the moon, not in the lot of children, not in the 5th, not in the rulers. If there had been a baby death indicator, it would have shown up at least one of these ways. A heavy afflicted 5th house ruler, moon applying to the malefic with no mitigation, 8th house ruler sitting or ruling the 5th house, a child-related planet combust or under the beams, a malefic dominating the child's house with no escape, a clear ending signature tied to the child archetype. None of that is present. The baby energy is not showing death. The 5th house child archetype was not in a terminal condition. The ruler wasn't Caden afflicted, conjunctive malefic, under the beams in the 8th house, or ruling the 8th. Instead, it showed movement, transition, exchange of hands, matching the meeting plus alive cards, separation from another, and change of environment. That's not how a deceased child reads astrologically. Moon condition supported by a separated but living child. The moon equals the mother-child bond. When a baby has died, the moon usually moves toward Saturn in the ending, Mars violent, severing, and 8th house ruler. Instead, the moon aspects pattern matched. Relocation, transfer, being taken, not lost, and continued existence after the event. This exactly matched the rods and repeating fake death cards. The 8th house did not absorb the child's signature. The 8th house showed staging, injury, the maternal archetype's ending, and suppression symbolism. It did not pull in the 5th house ruler, the child significator, any child-related lots, which means the child was not shown as deceased in the event chart. The chart showed a birth transition, not a baby death transition. A birth signature looks like Moon plus Venus plus 5th. Change of state, separation, movement, outcome energy, independent of the mother. A baby death signature looks like that. Nothing like that. I was reading it correctly from the start. That's actually what the chart said. Final answer, there's no death signature for the baby in the chart. The symbolism pointed to birth, separation, movement, not death. This is why my card said fake death, death hoax, meeting alive, run, escape, theft, custody, possession, trafficking, not literal but transfer, and that's it. And I ran a second horary. It's basically the same. The 5th house ruler is not in the 8th house. First thing that we check in horary is vitality. If the child energy were symbolically terminated, the 5th house ruler would sit in the 8th, be ruled by the 8th, be applying to the 8th ruler, or be severely affected with no mitigation. None of that appears here. It matches the crime chart, the cards in the vision. The 5th ruler shows movement, not death. The child energy significator, changing signs or houses, movement, change of environment, supported by benefics, protection, and help, not applying to malefics in a destructive way. This is textbook horary symbolism for a child who has transitioned from one environment to another, not a child whose story is ended. This fits the handoff plus the meeting alive cards perfectly. So the moon mother-child bond separates from harm and moves towards neutrality or support. In horary, the moon applying to Saturn equals the death themes, the moon applying to Mars equals injury, violence, the moon under beams equals danger, and the moon in a frail detriment with harmful aspects is termination. But here, the moon is not applying to the 8th ruler, Mars, Saturn, in a deadly configuration. Instead, it's symbolically showing separation, transition, new phase. This mirrors earlier visions. She gave birth, separation, baby continues, mother path ends later. The child energy has dignity or reception, meaning life force present. This is subtle but important. When horary significator has essential dignity, reception, or even a slight positive reinforcement, it indicates continuation, vitality, or existence, not termination. The child energy has enough symbolic strength to show not gone. There is no death signature for the baby. No malefic dominates the child energy. If the child energy were symbolically deceased, the 5th ruler would be combust, be signed by malefics in the 12th, or trapped between Saturn and Mars. None of those conditions appear. Instead, the pattern looks like movement to a new house, change of hands, and continued trajectory. This again matches the rods, the vision of the baby crying, the fake death cards, the meeting alive card, and the absence of the baby death indicators in the crime chart. Again, the child energy shows continuing on, movement, and ongoing existence, not death. Nothing in this horary or the crime chart or anything I've done has ever said that the baby died and supports the death narrative. Everything supports birth, separation, and movement into new hands. And that's what aligns. Not the rumors, not the internet theories, not the narrative people want to believe, not what Ellie is saying, not what the liars are saying, not the bull bullshit story. This is what matches the chart. This is what matches the sequencing. This is what matched every impression spirit pushed forward. I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm here to tell the story that wouldn't leave me alone until I saw it clearly. I use the astrology to back everything up to show you, because a psychic can say anything that they want, but this also helped me understand. It helped me untangle everything. It helped me realize there was 2 paths I was getting. It helped me realize there was 2 stories I was getting. I was getting 2 stories in the cards. I was getting 2 stories in my mind. And this is why I was so confused when they came out with what they said. So whether the truth ever comes out publicly or not, I've done my part for Rebecca. And that was what I did this for. I wanted to break this fully down, show you guys exactly the real storyline, exactly her truth, her story, and what happened to her. It's a lot different than what's being said, and it is all aligned with every part of validation that I can do, that I've ever done on any case. Visions came first. Confused as hell. Double check the astrology. Confused as hell. Visions again. Confused. Like, it was an ongoing cycle. Rods, cards, everything pointed to. Just like, remember the very first cards I pulled? Missing and but in danger. Why? Rebecca wasn't missing and in danger. So from the very beginning. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Please hit the like button. I hope you understood all of that.